He's already proven that he can recruit the transfer portal extremely well. On today's episode of the show, we're explaining how Pat Kelsey is going to go toe-to-toe with the Blue Bloods in the 2025 high school recruiting cycle. All that and more coming up on today's episode of Locked On Louisville.
You are Locked On Louisville, your daily podcast on the Louisville Cardinals. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is going on, everyone? Welcome into this Tuesday edition of the Locked On Louisville podcast. I'm your host, Dalton Pence. Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. As playoffs wind down, the sports stop sporting like we want them to. But this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone all summer long. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. And as always, I want to personally thank you all for making us your first listen of the day. Just a reminder, the Locked On Louisville podcast is free and available on all streaming services 5 days a week. Your team every day. It's all about recruiting. On today's episode of the show, we begin in the men's basketball realm. Acaden Lewis, perhaps the highest riser in the 2025 class, is making an official visit to Louisville this summer. We'll also discuss some football recruiting. Are the Cardinals the leader for their top defensive prospect? I believe that the Cardinals could be in the driver's seat for top 150 prospect CJ May. We'll discuss on the second segment, and then to conclude the show, we'll wrap up with a weekly mailbag. So a lot of great, interesting stuff to talk about. We begin on the men's basketball side of things. As I mentioned, Pat Kelsey has more than proven himself in terms of recruiting the transfer portal well. He even got his first high school commitment as the coach of Louisville. Kenai Roots, top 40 player, was the top uncommitted player at the time. Solid statement made all off season long. Now you have your first full high school recruiting class, and he is looking to leave his mark. In the news of Acaden Lewis scheduling his official visit for this summer, Lewis will likely end up as a 5-star here in no time. That just further proves the point that Pat Kelsey is not scared of and will continue to go toe-to-toe with the Blue Bloods and top programs, not only in the 2025 high school recruiting cycle, but recruiting cycles for years to come. Now, let me preface what I'm about to say by acknowledging that Louisville has always recruited top talent. They've offered top talent. They've worked to get some of these players on campus. They've gotten really serious in certain recruitments, but the track record just isn't there. Like, the Cardinals program really isn't known for bringing in those blue chip, 5-star level caliber players. They're more so the school that has the MO of getting the developmental guys, high 4 stars, middle of the road 4 stars that they can develop to be multiple year contributors. And then you sprinkle in some diamond in the rough type guys that went unranked, 2 stars, 3 stars, low 4 stars, you name it. Long story short, it really hasn't been Louisville's tactic to go out and just get the most talented players. And I am not suggesting that that is going to be the case where Louisville becomes the new Kentucky under John Calipari, but I do think that you're going to see the Cardinals more involved in the recruitments with these top players than what you are used to seeing. And the trend that we're seeing with some of these top-ranked guys taking official visits already further proves the point. I mean, we already have a track record of Pat Kelsey bringing some big-time guys on official visits. Jaden Quaintons, Kenai Roots, Shelton Henderson, who we just talked about a couple days ago, top 20 player, will be on campus in mid-August. Acaden Lewis, a player who will likely be a 5-star here coming up soon, will be on campus at the end of August. So you're starting to see a little bit of a shift. I think that a lot of that can be contributed to NIL. Louisville has one of the better NIL infrastructures in place. The budget is there, and I think that if Louisville continues to win and people continue to buy into what Pat Kelsey is bringing to this program, then you're going to see those donations go up. A lot of old-time money coming back and giving money back to the program like they used to. Frankly, since Rick Pitino got fired. Now, granted, they're still going to have to land these players. It's one thing to get the official visit, and that's great, but you also still have to land these players. They're not going to be easy recruitments. You're going up against the best of the best, the Dukes, the UConns, the Kentuckys, the Kansas, the North Carolinas, the UCLAs, and then some of your newer traditional, well, not traditional, that kind of contradicts itself, newer and traditional, but newer solid recruiting teams like Baylor, like Alabama, you name it. Even Michigan State into the mix. So I am interested to see, how involved Louisville can get in these recruitments, because it's quite frankly clear that Pat Kelsey is not scared of the Blue Bloods. He will go after the top players, the best of the best. And getting these players on official visits still frequently feels like it's something that we haven't seen. Louisville occasionally got the top recruit on an official visit. And I know that the more official visits allowed kind of takes away a little bit of the significance. Not a ton, but a little bit. But still, they're making the official visits. This trend's further proven by Acaden Lewis. Lewis is perhaps the highest riser in the 2025 class. Just a couple months ago, he was on the back end of the top 100, 80s, 90s, depending on what service you frequent. He rose considerably after a very, very stellar beginning to the AAU season. He is now in the top 40. He's ranked as 34th in the country. 6'2", 6'3" combo guard from the nation's capital. Was completely overlooked. The Sidwell Friends School star from Washington, D.C., took the world and AAU circuit by storm this summer and flat out rose up the rankings. He's going to continue to rise up rankings. It would not surprise me by the time of his visit, which is scheduled for August 30th at Louisville, he would probably be a top 25 player. I would venture into saying, I would go out on a limb and say that by this time next year, when these guys are enrolling at their certain schools, he's going to be a top 10 player. And he showed why this AAU circuit. He, first of all, is a lefty. And, for some reason, I just think that whenever – I don't know. I think that lefties' jump shots look better than righties' jump shots. I know that there's really nothing to back that up. I guess it's because I'm a lifelong James Harden fan, being a Houston Rockets fan, but please don't roast me for that. Nonetheless, shot aside, his creation ability is off the charts. He has a tremendous feel for the game in the half court. He is excellent in transition, can affect the offense on or off ball. I think he's more dangerous with the ball in his hands. He is a flamethrower with the ball in his hands, can score at all three levels, tough shot maker. Doesn't really get sped up or slowed down. He plays at his pace. And to make long story short, he's just such an advanced guard with a great offensive repertoire and advanced scoring arsenal. A guy that can score all inside of the half court. He's going to continue to rise up the court. And, he has the ability to create for his teammates. The change of direction is up there with probably some of the best in the class, if not the best. He can stop on a dime. He can speed up and slow down according to what the defense is showing him. He's a fantastic player. His first scheduled official visit is Louisville on August 30th. He will likely be in attendance for the Cardinals opening football game on August 31st against Austin Peay. That would be a good experience. The only other official he has scheduled for right now is North Carolina in early October. He will make an unofficial visit to Chapel Hill, actually, I think on Thursday. But he has spent the past couple months visiting a couple different places unofficially. He spent time at Kentucky this month. He, I believe, is going to spend time in Maryland. But nonetheless, he has scholarship offers from all of the top schools. This is an opportunity for Louisville to continue to rise up in the recruiting ranks to, number one, build the program's image back up, but also take recruiting to a new level. This is what Acaden Lewis said, I believe, to Michael McCammon of Cardinal Authorities the Louisville 24/7 sports site. He said this of Pat Kelsey and the interest. It started last session, Lewis said, adding that it was head coach Pat Kelsey that extended the offer. Start quote, "It was always nice to get an offer from the head coach. He said he loved how I played and what he saw with my tenacity and what he saw with me picking my spots, knowing when to score and when to get my teammates involved." The quote continues on saying, and this is key, "I know Louisville is a really historic program. The last couple of years were not good, but I know that that's going to change. They have a lot of good things going on over there." End quote. So it just goes to show you that I think that Pat Kelsey is slowly but surely continuing to build that brand back up, and it will all, be able to get to new heights with winning consistently. But for the time being, getting some of that recruiting momentum is big, and getting a player like Acaden Lewis on campus for an official visit in August is even more significant. So this is definitely a recruitment to keep your eye out on, but a lot of competition in this one. So, but nonetheless, Pat Kelsey going toe-to-toe with the nation's top programs. After we come back from break, we're going to switch over to the football side of things, where perhaps the Cardinals' most important recruit is deciding next month, and we have good reason to believe that the Cardinals could be the leader heading into the decision. We'll break it down after we talk to you about our friends over at FanDuel. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Look, you know it, I love sports. I love them so much that I never want them to stop. But as the playoffs wind down, we get fewer games. The sports aren't sporting like I want them to, but FanDuel lets me keep the sports going whenever I want. All I have to do is open up the app and dream up bets anytime I'm in the mood, whether it's MLB, Copa America, Euro 2024, you name it. This summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. Head over to FanDuel.com/lockedon and start making the most out of your summer. FanDuel is the official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. And Cardinal fans, I've mentioned it a couple times, if you are just burnt out with all the screaming on your mainstream sports networks, turn no further. Make the switch to Locked On Sports today. It's a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day. Into the second segment of this Tuesday edition of the Locked On Louisville podcast. Thanks again for making us your first listen of the day. Be sure to like the video. If you're feeling generous, drop a subscription to the page. It is definitely appreciated. But we're switching over to the football side of things, where the Cardinals have lost a couple commitments recently. Jake Cook decommitted last week, likely going to Ohio State if you're reading the tea leaves. LeBron Hill, just a couple hours ago on Tuesday afternoon, flipped to Purdue. Not ideal, but I'm not really losing sleep over it either, especially since Louisville has some key commitment dates to focus on coming up. One of them is CJ May. May is making his commitment on July 13th here in a couple of weeks. The 6'4" edge rusher from Highland Home, Alabama, is perhaps the Cardinals' most important recruit prospect at this time. He is currently ranked inside of the top 150, 145th in the country nationally, according to 247sports.com. 16th best edge rusher, 12th best prospect in the state of Alabama. 6'4", 225 pounds, extremely explosive off the edge. Would he come in and play right away? That is to be determined, but I think he's got that tenacity and motor that is really reminiscent of Ashton Gelati when he was in high school down in Boca Raton just a couple years ago. I think May has a little bit more strength to his frame when you compare both players at this point in their career, but I think with a good offseason in year one in the strength and conditioning program, the sky is the limit for the player from the state of Alabama. He just released his top four. The Cardinals were included with Syracuse, Washington, and Auburn. Pretty interesting top four. For a backstory, for those who don't know, Louisville has been involved with May pretty much ever since Brom took the position at Louisville. Last summer, at the end of last summer, back in August, he mentioned Louisville as one of his top schools. Now, shortly after that, he committed to Notre Dame. Now, if you all don't know this, Notre Dame has a policy, it's unspoken, sort of like Clemson, to where if you commit, you're really not allowed to take any other visits, or you're not going to be committed here. You're going to get that scholarship pulled. Now, some say that Notre Dame had higher priorities on the Edge board. If that's the case, it is what it is. But it seemed like May wanted to make some more visits. So, I mean, the writing's on the wall there. Decommitted, and Louisville seemingly never stopped being involved in this recruitment. Visited the campus a couple of times and then took his official visit at the end of May. Got an offer from Syracuse. Syracuse has turned up the heat in this recruitment. He took an official visit there. I think it was 2 weekends ago, the weekend of the 14th. A couple of interesting developments. There are two. Number one, May was back on Louisville's campus this past weekend for an unofficial visit. This close to a commitment date, that means a ton. Number two, I'm trying to hold up the number two, but you can't see my hands in the screen. Number two, there has been a crystal ball prediction from Tom Loy, national recruiting analyst for 24/7 Sports, has a major focus with Notre Dame. When he makes a prediction, I mean, he's like 83 for 85. In other words, he's money. Money in the bank. A lot of crystal balls to this point had Mississippi as the go-to school, the Rebels not included in the top four. And, I mean, yes, they do recruit the state of Alabama well. SEC kind of recruits the Southeast, but it seems like maybe Mississippi has some higher targets on the board. But I think that Louisville, as of right now, on June 25th, sits in the driver's seat of this recruitment. They have the staff relationship that they built over the past year. He's been on campus multiple times. The unofficial visit, Tom Loy made his crystal ball prediction. But you look at the other three. Washington's pretty solid. Don't get me wrong. But I do think that he made an official visit in May. I wonder if the distance is going to work to the Huskies' disadvantage here. And at this point, I feel like Washington's on the outside looking in. Talking to a national recruiting analyst about Auburn's interest in CJ May, at this point in time, what I can tell you and what I've been told by someone in the area or in the state of Alabama is that Auburn has some guys higher up the priority board than CJ May at this current moment, which doesn't make you feel good if you're a Louisville fan, because what happens if they miss on those guys and then they go ahead and prioritize May? That's a conversation for a different time. But I don't think that Auburn's really pushing for his commitment right now, and I don't think that the Tigers will be the selection. I think that this is a battle between Louisville and their ACC and old Big East rival, Syracuse. Syracuse has seemingly turned up the full court press on him. Ever since they got the new head coach in place, I think it is going to be fairly interesting. Fran Brown, I think, is going to turn around this Syracuse program. To what extent, I'm not sure. That's neither here nor there at this point in time. But I do think that they do have some solid recruiters on that staff. And this is going to be a challenging battle to win. I do think Louisville holds the upper leg right now. I think they're in the driver's seat. Now, a couple things to note here. Number one, these things change all the time in recruiting. If you thought recruiting was volatile a couple of years ago, you know, it's these 1,000% committed posts aren't real for the most part. If you get a commitment from a player, you are fighting for that player up until signing day after signing day, after their first year, after their second year, their third year, you are constantly recruiting your roster, even when they are on your roster. That is the state of college athletics as we speak. So understand this, that while I say all that to say this, while Louisville is in the driver's seat on June 25th, in my opinion, it can change. We are still a couple weeks away from this decision. We will keep our ear to the ground, and if something changes to where I feel like they are no longer in the driver's seat, I will tell you. But at this point in time, from what I hear, I personally, no one else, me personally, I believe that the Cardinals are in the driver's seat for a top 150 prospect who could be the crown jewel of the Flyville 25 class. Hopefully on July 13th, or it's the offseason, who knows when that next episode will be after that chronologically. Hopefully on that next episode, we talk about CJ May's commitment and how significant it is for this Cardinal recruiting class. But let's conclude the show. There's a lot of great questions in the mailbag, some new, some that were literally asked on Tuesday. Shout out to you all for putting questions in the mailbag. We'll address them here coming up shortly after we tell you about our friends at eBay Motors. Today's episode also brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience, the formula for winning championships, is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered, because with over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay's Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride, or you get your money back, because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. Final segment of this Tuesday off-season edition of the Locked On Louisville podcast. Again, appreciate you all for making us your first listen of the day. Weekly mailbag. A lot of great questions. A couple introduced and asked today. One that was asked today was, what are your thoughts on LeBron Hill flipping to Purdue? I put it this way. I'm never worried about the receiver position while Jeff Brom is the head coach. Really, while anybody's the head coach. Louisville does a really, really good job recruiting wide receivers. Even if LeBron Hill would have stayed here, I am not sure if he was a guy that was going to see playing time year one, maybe not even year two, because the Cardinals like to address the position in the transfer portal. They got some very talented guys at the position. I'm really not losing sleep over this. I'm going to be completely honest with you. This is no disrespect to LeBron. It's just sort of the position in general. Like if you would have lost like a quarterback commitment or a defensive tackle, then you're having a different conversation. But wide receiver, running back, tight end, even offensive line to an extent, depending on how highly rated the guy is, I'm not really losing too much sleep over this decommitment. I'm more so I was hurt a little bit more by Jake Cook's decommitment than I was about LeBron Hill's, because of Jake Cook playing on the offensive line in the trenches. But even then, it just is what it is, man. That's recruiting. You can't get too high, can't get too low. Just have to take things for face value and understand that things change all the dang time. Next question. On the football side of things, the preseason All-ACC honors came out. Which one do you disagree with the most? So I don't know the publication on it, but some site or service released their All-ACC preseason teams. The one that I disagree with the most was MJ Griffin being on the fourth team. I think that MJ is going to be on the second team at the very least. I know that that's high praise. I have been the leader of the MJ Brigade since he stepped foot on campus over 3 years ago, or 2 years ago. Time's flying. Wow, that's crazy. I think he's going to be an All-American. I thought he was going to be one last year. I think he's going to be one this year. So I'm going to stay true to that assessment. MJ Griffin is going to be one of the best safeties in not only the ACC, but the country, in my opinion. When do you think Louisville's first football loss is going to come? That is a very, very good question because I have just not been asked that. And you put me a little bit on the spot. Now, I had a little bit of time to prepare for this question, but it was introduced today. So I'm like, ooh, okay. I don't think it's going to be Austin Peay or Jacksonville State. I think the Cardinals start out 2-0. This is going to be a challenging one because it all depends on how you feel about the team at Notre Dame. I'm saying I'm going to go out on a limb. I think Louisville's first loss is going to be like last year. They're going to start out 6-0 and then lose that next game. Say what you want. I'm giving the Cardinals the benefit of the doubt. I think they're going to beat Notre Dame on the road. I think they're going to beat SMU at home. I think they're going to lose to Miami. I think Miami's going to be a lot better than what people give credit for. Yes, Mario Cristobal, there are some concerns whether or not he's going to hold Cam Ward back, but I do think that there's a lot of talent on that Miami team. It's just not really realistic to predict that a team's going to go undefeated. If it's not Miami, I'd say at Clemson. But I'm going to give Louisville the benefit of the doubt against Notre Dame and just say that loss is going to come to Miami. But don't overlook Georgia Tech or SMU, though. That it would be my warning. On along, Louisville will play Tennessee the second game of the year. How significant is it to bring the team into the Young Center that early in Pat Kelsey's tenure? I mean, it's very significant. I think playing Tennessee regardless, but it will give you a chance for your home crowd specifically to show up and show out. And hopefully that is the case. I think they would play Morehead State first. That the schedule hasn't been finalized. So at this point, I really like seeing that. I like seeing Tennessee on the schedule. That's pretty awesome. Also, I would venture into saying that I like that there's multiple SEC teams that also host Mississippi. I'm not sure the date on that. December 3rd. So Chris Beard's team will probably be pretty solid. So I think that's pretty solid. Last basketball question. Who do you think goes further, Louisville or Kentucky in the NCAA tournament? I mean, this is June we're talking about. It's way too early to tell, but Cardinals, of course. I think Louisville's going to be the better team. I feel like Louisville's roster meshes a little bit better than Kentucky's. I think Kentucky has some solid pieces. I do wonder, can Jackson Robinson be the go-to scoring option for Mark Pope's team? I don't know. I worry about their ability to create offense, who's going to get their own shots on that team. I just feel like the roster meshes better. I feel like top to bottom, it's a better roster for Louisville, but nonetheless, I do think the Cardinals will go a little further. So that is going to wrap up this episode of the Locked On Louisville podcast. We will be back this weekend, later on this week, to discuss some more as we head into the month of July. So be sure to stay tuned. Have a great week. We'll see you back soon.